Hello, welcome to this Understanding React. This is episode 7. Why can't functions remember anything? React wise. Let's go. So, up until episode 6, everything has been classes. So if we need to remember something inside a class, we do this dot state equal count 0. So this way we remember an instance of the class with this. So now, like the modern React is function based. So a function component and we return hello. This is a valid component. It will return hello. Let me erase all this. Well, we can see it because we need the React DOM render on the ID root, right? We need that whole line down here. So with the modern React function-based components, it has no this dot counter, this dot state, no instance, no object that remembers data that sticks around. It's a function. You call it, it runs what's on the curly braces, it returns something, and everything is gone from the heap or the memory for that function, right? So where does the state go? So that is what we will be playing around with in this episode. So let's start with some tries. Of course they will be wrong, but we will be building towards the real or the similar thing that React does, which is the set state. All right, let's go. So first off, let us React DOM dot create root. React DOM create root of what? Document dot get element by ID. Get element by ID, and let's get the root dot render, and then our mighty counter component. Oopsie, whoopsie. Again with the, I do this mistake often. React DOM, this is case sensitive, so you don't see anything. It's because there, hello. It's because the DOM with small case does not work. This is the word React DOM. These are uppercase. Anyways, so now we can see our function counter returns a hello, and this function based counter, it works, displays this, right? So let's keep going. So let's first try, obvious first try, we let count equals 0, and then we do a function increment count is equal to count plus 1 console.log is now count, and then let's return a whole, oops, let's return parentheses a div, and inside that div a paragraph with, and then curly braces to escape, and then a button which says add 1. Increment. There we go. Let me open the console, see what's going on. Add 1, count is now 1. So what's going on? Again, count is now 2, count is now 3 on the console, but count is 0 on the HTML, on the JSX. This is not changing. What's going on? So we see that the console is incrementing, the variable is changing, but over here the DOM is not changing. So problem 1. Nobody is telling React over here to re-render counter. We just run stuff. This goes once, builds once, renders once, and then when we do stuff, nobody is telling React to re-render. So let's force a re-render on a kind of a hacky way, quick hack. So what we will do is how are we gonna do this hackish stuff? We're gonna class extends we're gonna do a real React one with the class one. But just so it re-renders stuff. You'll see what I mean. This one has state. We're not going to render this state. This is just so we run a set state so it re-renders. So then on a render function, we will return, and let's return a div. Return a div, and inside this div, let's return a button that says force re-render. And instead of rendering counter over here, we are gonna render parent. Whoops. Uncut reference rent is not defined. What? Where? Parent is not defined. What? Oh, I am sorry. I put the class parent inside the function. There we go. For re-render. Right now it does not do anything because it's just a... So our function counter was like we left it, but now we are just rendering this parent class with a button force re-render. And inside this parent, let's render our counter. There. Still the same issue, right? Because this counter is not using set state, so this re-renders. So let's add an on-click to this. On-click is equal. And let's pass a callback right here. So this dot set state tick, this dot state dot tick +1. All right, so this works. And if we click the force render, re-render, nothing happens. So let's just the P for re-render. So the force re-rendering is ticking. We are re-rendering because the tick is incrementing. And the add count, look, 1, 2, 3. Then we force a re-render, then add 1, and it started back at 1 again. So now, what is going on? Is this worse? After the, let's console.log counter called. Counter called. That's it. It's not called anymore. We are just running the increment function with the count. Force re-render. Counter called. Counter called, let count equals 0. And here's the 1. Counter called 2. Count now is 1, 2. Force re-render. Counter called. Dang. So now what? All right. Great idea. Let's move this count outside the function like this. We declare outside the function, and then in the function we just increment it, and this should work. Oh, counter called, because when we re-render we call the counter. Okay, so now we can see counter called. Counter called, call 0. Add 1. Count is now 1. Count is now 2. Now let's see just the re-rendering stuff. If we re-render, right? First re-render. Okay, so now we see progress, because now when we re-render, so forget about this re-rendering. Let me leave it there. So yes, let me delete this. We know that's working. So we add stuff. If we first re-render, we now see it. So if we add 1 and we re-rendered to see if the problem is just the render, now it remembers because it's outside. 1, re-render, 2, re-render. So now, since this let is at module level, counter gets called over and over, and count isn't inside it anymore, so it does not get reset. So this is progress. So now state survives renders in a function component. No classes anywhere for this counter. So now let's keep going. In our parent component, let's 2 counters. So we counter called run twice, count 0. So we add 1 here. Count is now 1. So we first render. Okay, so now it's a problem, because now each component has no independent state. Dang. There's one count variable in the whole file, so if we increment it, of course it increments it everywhere. So we're back to episode 1 of this series. So now we will have to do count 2, copy paste the whole thing. Back in episode 1, we solved the one shape many independent copies problem with 2 ways: a class and a make counters function. Okay, so let's try that stuff. We will wrap all this stuff inside a curly bracket, and then function make counter. Oops, it did not, because I am missing this. There. So now our prettier. So we have the let count. Now we need, yeah, but now we need this. We need const counter A. Make counter. We need to return this function. Return this function we had. Sorry. Return the whole counter function. So the let is still outside the function counter, and the make counter function we will be putting counter A, and then let's counter B. Now what? Now what? I'm seeing like a gazillion errors. Counter is not defined. Yes, because we need to now render counter A and counter B. All right, so counter called twice. Beautiful. Oh. So is this working? So looks like we won, no? Like this. It's beautiful. Except, of course, if we render like this, then one for every render. So twice the same component, it doesn't work like what we had before. So now this is the real killer of this approach, because we cannot have the same component and use it in multiple places of our page, because they share the same function, the same count. So let's go through what state storage the count actually has to do. We learned all four things the hard way. 1. Leave outside the function. Attempt 1. 2. Be per instance, not global. Attempt 2. 3. Be handed out by whoever created the instance. Attempt 3. 4. Trigger a re-render. Even attempt 2 needed a separate button. So who can do all of those four things? Well, not us. We never call those functions. React does. React knows counter. Appear twice. React decides when to call it. So state doesn't live in your function. It lives in React, and your function asks for it. So that's use state, not storage. It's a request. So if React just calls a function which is not an instance, and with no this, no ID, how does React know which one of the two is calling? So it can hold a separate state for each one of these. So that's because that's what use state does now. It's use state. That's what use state does now on the normal React. So next video we will be looking at that. We will build our toy one like we have been doing on this entire series. So this will be for this one. Thanks a lot for watching and see you on the next one. Bye bye.